At 5:05 a.m. on May 19, 1953, in Yucca Flat, Nevada, one of a series of nuclear tests known as Upshot Knoll is launched. Within seconds of the detonation, a disc-shaped object is seen rapidly descending from the sky, heading south toward Las Vegas before disappearing behind the mountains. Only 2 days following this incident, government officials covertly assembled a group of scientists for an unusual job. They were to look into the crash of an unidentified flying object on the outskirts of Kingman, Arizona, a city 175 miles south of the nuclear test facility. 40 engineers boarded a bus and traveled 3.5 hours from Phoenix to Kingman. When they arrived, it was nighttime. There were MPs in every part of the craft. It's about a 40-foot diameter dish-shaped ship that was completely intact. There was no scratch on it. This craft was affiliated with 4 beings who shipped it to Groom Lake. Groom Lake is located in Nevada's Area 51 region, which was once bare bones. They took the craft and the aliens to that secluded site in the Nevada desert where they created Area 51. Area 51, a top-secret military base hidden behind a ring of mountains deep in the Nevada desert, has long been speculated to contain evidence of alien technology. There are also reports that a unique facility at Area 51 once housed a survivor of the 1953 Kingman UFO crash, an alien entity known as J-Rod. J-Rod is an alien who supposedly worked at Area 51 for many years. J-Rod's role or duty was to assist in reverse engineering technologies from the 1953 Kingman UFO crash. J-Rod was a crash survivor who worked directly for our own government. Captain Bill Uhouse, a former Navy pilot who later worked for the United States Air Force undertaking experimental aircraft research, was posted to Area 51 in the mid-1960s and claims to have studied the craft that purportedly crashed near Kingman, Arizona, as well as had direct communication with J-Rod. We had a long period of introduction before meeting, alien, and I called him J-Rod. That's the name the linguist assigned him. And he would talk. He'd speak, but it would sound exactly like you. He's like a parrot, but he'll try to answer your question. Basically, it was only engineering or science advice. Another whistleblower, Dan Beisch, claims that he was hired as a microbiologist to essentially care for J-Rod and keep him healthy. And this continued for years and years. According to Dan Beisch and Bill Uhouse, J-Rod was imprisoned in a unique underground chamber at Area 51, and there have been multiple reports of extraterrestrials collaborating with the US government. There's a lot of stories that we've worked with the aliens at Area 51, or some say at a base nearby, kind of in the desert out there. And we've been working with them in underground labs, and they have been sharing information for us to enhance our technologies. Is it feasible that the US administration has encountered and collaborated with beings like J-Rod and other extraterrestrial visitors since at least the 1950s? According to UFO experts, there is proof that extraterrestrials have not only been confined at secret military locations, but have also met face-to-face with the commander-in-chief within the walls of the Pentagon. One of the most detailed claims of a presidential near-encounter is that of an extraterrestrial visitor named Valiant Thor. The narrative of Valiant Thor comes from a chaplain named Frank Stranges, who appears to have top-secret status. According to the account, in 1957, a UFO landed in Virginia, near Washington, D.C. Police were called to the scene, and out walked a human-looking individual who asked to meet with then-President Eisenhower. He was escorted directly to the Pentagon and was able to schedule a meeting with President Eisenhower. In this meeting, he basically stated that he was deeply concerned about our use of nuclear weapons. The assumption was that Valiant Thor was the extraterrestrial envoy, and he was occasionally advising President Eisenhower and the United States administration on policy matters. The thought that an actual physical alien visitor could be impacting the course of the world is plausible. I'm sure there are envoys out there who do the same thing, not just on one planet, but throughout entire planetary systems. Burbank, California, June 1943. During World War II, the government pressures Lockheed Aircraft Corporation to produce the next generation of military planes, jet fighters designed to outflank propeller aircraft and assist reverse the tide of battle. A team led by Lockheed engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson completes the first production model in just 143 days. Their P-80 Shooting Star kicks in the jet age for the U.S. military. Kelly Johnson's covert R&D team is eventually dubbed Skunk Works. Clarence Kelly Johnson was the first head of Lockheed's Skunk Works division from the 1950s and 1960s until 1975. He created the U-2 spy plane, which could fly at 80,000 feet and had remarkable photographic capabilities, and he is unquestionably a legend in the aviation community. Despite his mainstream credentials, Johnson is the key eyewitness to the now famous UFO incident in Agoura, California, on December 16, 1953. His encounter report and personal sketches of the craft were recorded by Project Blue Book, the U.S. government's official account of the UFO phenomenon at the time. He was with some of his coworkers at the time when he noticed a really weird thing that he couldn't explain using any of the technologies he was familiar with. During an era of government skepticism concerning UFOs, Johnson jeopardizes his career by reporting the experience to his superiors. However, rather than being punished or dismissed, Johnson appears to be rewarded 2 years later when he plays a key role in the establishment of America's most secret military base, Area 51. Kelly Johnson was the one who recognized the site of Area 51 as a desirable strategic location. It is fundamentally located in the appropriate region of the planet, away from prying eyes. But was Area 51 founded solely to test new aircraft, as the military claims? Or did Kelly Johnson select the spot as the finest place to reverse engineer the alien spacecraft he thought he saw with his own eyes? Rachel, Nevada, March 17, 2018. Giorgio Tsoukalos had a meeting with researcher Wolf McCarran and mining expert Christian G. No, just outside Area 51. They've come to examine claims of a tunnel network beneath Area 51. This is amazing, isn't it? Wolf and Christian believe the Tenuit mine is one of several historic Nevada mines that have been utilized to enhance Area 51's operations deep underground. I'm a miner roughly 100 miles north of Area 51, and I've been working there since 1992. I also own a mine in Goldfield, so I'm an ardent miner. You know, I look for these. So what can you tell us about Area 51? Area 51, what you see on Google imagery, was from the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. Since then, they've decreased. Everything they do happens underground. And what evidence have you come across as a miner that would corroborate your idea? People are wondering, if they're going down, where does all the dirt go? It's going to these neighboring mines where it's being heap leached and stored in massive mountains. By the time they're done heap leaching a massive mountain, it's reduced to nothing. Now, to the uninitiated, what does heap leaching mean? It means they pile the ore up into a big mountain hundreds of feet high, and they run hoses all the way through it, about every 2 feet, to leach mercury and cyanide. And what that does is take rocks this enormous and reduce them to nothing. Really? Is the government employing heap leaching inside the Tenuit mine to conceal the vast volumes of material extracted during their mining operations? But, if so, how does the government carry out such a massive operation without raising the suspicions of the local miners? The mines surrounding here include gold, silver, and lead, so any mine would gladly welcome the ore, and it's kind of like hush money. I've watched and dealt with this hush-up on numerous occasions. Has the U.S. military expanded its operations at Area 51 downward rather than outward in order to keep its top-secret activity even more hidden than before? Based on extensive investigation, I believe that there is a huge, if not gigantic, web of interconnecting underground bases and tunnels. They started doing it to protect against an atomic strike from the Soviet Union, and safe underground facilities are required. So they took that and ran with it. The underground train system is claimed to be centered on Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. The U.S. military hollowed out this mountain. It's NORAD Central Command. They travel from Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs to Dulce, New Mexico, which is supposed to hold an extraterrestrial underground facility. Then it travels to Los Alamos in New Mexico, Albuquerque, Roswell, and Area 51 in Nevada. All of these military bases are effectively linked by a covert underground metro system. Beale Air Force Base in 1967. Captain David Freehoff of the United States Air Force has joined a select club of pilots who operate America's most sophisticated surveillance plane, the SR-71. I was an SR-71 pilot for 4.5 years. The airplane had a performance time of an hour from coast to coast. That type of performance would twist your mind, and you'd be so happy to have the opportunity to fly that plane and be a part of that unit and those individuals. It was family. Nobody is astonished when the military sends such an excellent pilot to duty at America's most top-secret Air Force base. I worked at Area 51 for 6 years, from 1979 to 1985. You needed a special clearance, a top-secret SBI, and a unique background investigation. Fortunately, I had obtained it while flying the SR, so it was a simple transition for me to shift from the SR-71, my clearances, and all over to Area 51. Freehoff and his colleagues commuted daily from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas to Area 51 via Janet Airlines, a mysterious government carrier. One of the most fascinating accounts regarding Area 51 comes from engineer D. Bournes. Here's what he said: "If there were UFOs being reverse engineered at this base, I wouldn't know about it since you flew out on an airline, Janet Airlines, with the windows blacked out. So you had no idea where you were headed." Freehoff saw that on his regular travel, a small group of scientists and military personnel boarded the Janet 737 in Las Vegas. When the plane landed at Area 51, this group boarded a bus and traveled to an even more covert location known as Site 4, or S4. When I was there, we were aware of S4, but had no idea what they did. All we knew was that certain people boarded the 737 in the morning, and when we arrived to Area 51, they would board a bus and travel in a separate way, while we continued north, up towards the hangars. Freehoff was never sure what was going on at Site 4 throughout his tenure in Area 51. However, when he heard Bob Lazar's tale years later, he discovered that Lazar's description of flying to Area 51 on a Janet 737 and then moving to S4 was completely accurate. Critics argue that no actual eyewitnesses have come forward to establish that Lazar worked at Area 51, let alone S4. However, Freehoff claims otherwise. "I know others who worked for me and saw Bob Lazar after I departed, and they recently revealed it to me." I know his critics piled on because obviously they didn't want the word out that we had UFOs and that he was revealing a capacity to our enemies, that we were alien technologies.